For our next guest, we are going to head a little bit to the north, and we are going to bring in Representative Sheryl Kennedy. She represents the 48th District, which is the Genesee County area. But as we know, Representative Kennedy, politics do not stop at the border, do they?
They do not, no.
Thank you for being on with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. I guess I want to start off with the Democratic National Convention. Your take on how it's going this year. Is virtual working or not?
You know, I think virtual is where we are, whether we like it or not. I personally really miss the fun of the convention. Like, I was excited about being there this term. It's one of those once in a lifetime experiences. And before COVID, I had intended on going. And, there's something about the excitement, the energy of having a group of people together that you can't replace that. So, but in our current situation, the virtual is what we have to do because, for the health and safety of everyone. And I think given that, the format that they've been using has been effective. I think that we've been able to have more almost like an intimate conversation with candidates and leaders in our party. And I've been really, I love that the fact they can create a mosaic of our country and through people and people's stories and create that mosaic to really represent the democratic process and the diversity that that we have in our country, and also demonstrate the big tent that the Democratic Party is, which is, we're open to anyone who's interested in promoting democracy and democratic values. So I think it's been effective in that way. But I do, and of course, the speeches, Michelle Obama, oh my goodness, love her. And Kamala last night, she's so strong, and I'm just so excited to have her as the vice presidential candidate. And of course, I'm looking forward to Joe Biden, his acceptance speech. But I just, I wish we could all be together in person instead of virtually.
Representative Sheryl Kennedy, Michigan State Representative from the 48th District, with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Representative Kennedy, yesterday you had an opportunity to speak at Governor Whitmer's press conference where she, as well as you and others, announced $65 million in funding for schools through federal CARES Act dollars and the governor's Education Emergency Relief Fund as well. Can you give a little more details on what some of those dollars will go towards for students and schools that are most in need?
Well, what's important to recognize is that when the CARES Act dollars came to the state, they were immediately they're allocated in a way that the federal government determined, and so that the CARES Act dollars were spread pretty evenly between districts. But as you and I know, different districts have different needs. And specifically because of the COVID crisis, because we're going to have experienced extreme learning loss, we know that those learning losses are going to be exponential in areas with greater poverty or greater issues regarding connectivity, issues regarding, I was a principal in Walled Lake. I had a number of English language learners, all of those kind of specialized populations are the ones that are going to be struggling the most throughout this COVID crisis. And so the GEAR dollars from the governor are able to be directed more specifically to those at-risk populations. So the CARES Act dollars kind of goes to everybody, but then this money also is about making sure that the populations that need a little extra, if it's to get technology, connectivity to rural areas, if it's because you have a higher special education population in Flint, we have a higher special ed population because of the Flint water crisis. If you have a higher ELL population because you work in an immigrant community, those are the populations that we're making sure get a few extra dollars, so that in mental health services, and also this is really important, teacher education, because we've got amazing teachers in Michigan. I mean, amazing teachers, but they're trained to teach face to face in the classroom, and so taking those great lessons that that they're comfortable with, and finding a way to put that in a format that's usable via technology, it's a whole different look, and it's a whole different skill set. So it's really important that we're able to support teachers with additional training. And honestly, we have a number of teachers, like 20% of our teachers didn't even have connectivity at home. Their only technology was at work at school. So we have to make sure our teachers are connected first before we can connect our kids. So these gear dollars are going to go to kind of plug all those gaps. And it's exciting to know that we have a governor who understands that and prioritizes that, and created this budget in a way that we're taking care of all of our kids.
Representative, for our viewers and listeners out there that need this information, can you walk us through a little bit how it's actually going to work? We know typically the government is not fast. So with school starting in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how will the districts and the teachers and the people that need this money, how will they get it, and how quickly can they get it?
So this is going to be a part of their regular monthly payment. And honestly, as soon as the governor signs it, I think she may have already done that. I think she did that yesterday. It goes to the Treasury. And so it will go to the school districts based on formula. And they get paid once a month. School districts get money from the Michigan Treasury once a month. And so it'll be just a part of their Treasury based on the formula. Government moves really slow, but the nice thing about these CARES Act dollars and these gear dollars was that because of some work we passed earlier in the summer through appropriations, the governor was able to just appropriate these. And so it shouldn't go as slowly as, say, the full budget process, which we are still very much working on for the next year. So these dollars will be appropriated automatically. The budget, we're waiting to hear on Monday. We're having a revenue conference, which is unusual in August. Usually our last revenue conference is in May. But in May, we were in the height of COVID, and so our revenue was way down. We needed to have another revenue conference in August to see if our revenue has come up. And once we know how much revenue we've accumulated over the summer in the state of Michigan through sales tax, then we'll know what kind of budget we have to spend on schools. We were also very hopeful that by now we'd have a bill passed in the U.S. Senate that would be supporting states and sending some extra money to states, because all of the states in the country, regardless if they're run by a Democratic or Republican governor, we're all in the same spot. Like, we've all had to shut down in some way, shape, or form, and revenue is down. So we were really hopeful that the Senate would get it together and be able to pass a bill that would help fill some of those gaps. That has not happened. So right now we have to build a budget based on just our state revenue, which again, we'll find out more about that on Monday. But that doesn't mean that we can't adjust once the Senate does get their act together and decide that the states do need some additional appropriations. And if that happens, then we can always go back and adjust and increase the amount of money that goes to schools and also local governments, police, fire, all the things that we depend upon tax dollars to provide those services for.
Representative Sheryl Kennedy with us, Michigan representative from the 48th district with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. And to go back to the education funding, you had mentioned earlier that it is based on need, and every school district has different needs. Some will need more money for access to technology, for mental health and social work services as well. How is it determined what each school district's need is as this money is being prepared to be allocated on a monthly basis?
So there's a federal guideline as far as what we call Title I dollars. Title I is the money that we always get from the federal government, and those go to children of poverty. So essentially, we use the numbers for free and reduced lunch. So if a child is on free or reduced lunch, then we report that number of students to the state of Michigan. They report it to the federal government, and then we get extra money called Title I money, and that's to meet the needs of those children. So, and that includes that free or reduced lunch. That's a part of it. Also, extra reading support, parapro support, those kinds of things. So the more children you have in your building who fit that criteria, the more money that school district gets from the federal government under what we call Title I dollars. And so we already have those numbers. Same thing for special education. We already know how many children we have who are currently on an IEP. That means that they get special services, and that's their civil right. So we have those numbers. We know how many children get social work services as a result of that. That we have those numbers. And so there will be a formula set up by the state treasury so that we know those specialized populations, how large or small, and then districts will get money based on the need of those populations.
We are speaking with Sheryl Kennedy on the Oakland County MegaCast. You are the state representative for the 48th district, which does include the city of Flint. And obviously the breaking news that is coming out of your area right now is the compensation fund with the legal settlement that is expected to be finalized, I believe today or tomorrow, $600 million. What can you say about this? How is it going to work? And does this bring the saga to an end?
Well, first of all, I just want to make sure that my district does not include Flint. However, my district is affected by the water crisis in the sense that the children who were poisoned by Flint water, populations move. And because I'm a suburb of Flint, we have a number of those students in our district as well, a number of those families in our district as well. So although I don't represent Flint specifically, we as Genesee County certainly are interested in that ongoing crisis, which is still continuing. I mean, it's still, everybody in Flint still doesn't have clean water. So that needs to be said. The information that the governor was sharing today, my understanding was that this was supposed to be something that was being negotiated privately somehow. It got leaked to the press last night. So I do understand that the governor just made a statement about that. And the unfortunate thing is when the governor became governor and our new attorney general became the new attorney general, there were lawsuits against the governor of the state of Michigan. But of course, that was Rick Snyder. But those lawsuits were never settled. And so now when Governor Gretchen Whitmer came into office, now those lawsuits were against her because she holds that seat. And on appropriations, we knew from the very beginning that a number of the lawsuits, and not just for Flint Water, I mean, there are so many lawsuits that were brought across the state of Michigan against Rick Snyder and the former attorney general in a number of state departments for negligence, that those lawsuits, the right thing to do was to settle them. They were appropriate lawsuits. There was real harm that was done. And so the ethical and the correct thing to do was to settle these lawsuits and make sure that people are taken care of. They'll never be made whole. I mean, how do you make a child whole that's been poisoned from lead in the water, right? But we want to make sure that their needs are being met. And so we've known in the appropriations committee that we had to hold back a chunk of money that should have been going, to pay for our state services because we had to settle these lawsuits because it was the right thing to do. So I'm glad that those negotiations have been ongoing. I haven't been a part of them. I haven't been privy to them. We just knew that they were ongoing. And I'm glad that we're coming to a point where we can put some closure to this. I'm hoping that the folks who are affected feel that it's a fair settlement. I'm sure we'll be hearing, if there is concern about that. But I'm glad to know that we're at least taking this next step and trying to do what's right. for those people, because it was not their fault that they were put in harm's way because of negligence and greed.
Still crazy to think that so many people still don't have clean water. I know some communities, some households still using bottled water. But just in general terms on some of these compensation funds, if you can educate us on how do they work? Are they taxpayer funded? Because is the state self-insured? How does all that work? Is this going to be out of our tax dollars? And with all of this going on top of COVID and the pandemic, eventually we're going to have to start paying for this, right?
Yes, and that's what's unfortunate is I'm not sure if there's an insurance piece that's a part of it. I would be surprised if there wasn't, but I know that there's a big chunk that is just taxpayer dollars, and the taxpayer dollars that were going just into the legal fees when Rick Snyder was governor, that because he was fighting and fighting and fighting. I mean, millions and millions and millions of our taxpayer dollars that we never saw the benefit of because they were going into these legal fees, and so that again brings that to an end. But what's so sad, and I can speak to the Flint water crisis because it's so close to home, is that they made that decision to save something like $100 a day. They made the decision to give contaminated water to their citizens to save $100 a day. And you think of the tens of millions of dollars that my hard work, your hard work, our taxes go to, that we'll never see the benefit of, because someone decided that they needed to save $100 a day, and we'll just give people contaminated water and maybe no one will notice. I mean, I don't know. I can't even begin to think what the thought process was there other than just greed. And so anyway, yeah, we pay. As taxpayers, we pay. So we pay now, we pay later. I would have preferred that we invested in our water system. I would have preferred that we invested in our infrastructure. I would have preferred that we made sure that our, drinking water was safe for everyone, and we invested that money and came out with a better quality of life for everyone. But instead, because of poor decision making, we are using that money and we still haven't replaced that infrastructure fully. So it's just tragic all the way around.
Sheryl Kennedy, the Michigan State Representative for the 48th District, with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. We need to wrap up with you, but before we let you go, anything that you want to share with our listeners and viewers about what's going on in your district or anywhere across the state of Michigan?
Well, we, of course, it's election season, so that's a whole thing. But one thing that's really exciting, and this is just very locally, but this is why state government is important and local government is important. Yes, it's important that we show up and we vote for the president, but also please make sure you know who you're voting for down ballot. We're excited that we have a PFAS site in my district. It's an abandoned landfill. It's been a mess for a decade. And the PFAS is leaching in the groundwater. It costs us, the state of Michigan, again, those wasted tax dollars, a ton of money to pull the leachate out and get it to the water treatment plant. And we were able to acquire a $1.1 million grant that's going to fix it and put a cap on this abandoned landfill, and that will stop the PFAS from leaching into the groundwater. That was something that we were able to do because we got all of our local government leaders together. We pulled in folks from Eagle, we pulled in folks from the Flint watershed, and we brainstormed and we came up with a solution. And then it was my job as the state representative to go to the state of Michigan and saying, this is what we need. We can fix a problem, and we need $1 million. And we were able to do that. So those are the little things that make a big difference in people's lives. There are a lot of homeowners around that area. It's on a reservoir that people fish and boat and enjoy for leisure. And so those are the little wins that make a huge difference in anyone's district. And so just get to know your candidate and know what they've been doing and make sure that they're actually working for a living and vote for the person that's going to actually represent you and the needs of your district. So I'll just give that little shout out because we're going to start that work in the end of this month. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you so much for being with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. Sheryl Kennedy, State Representative for Michigan's 48th District.